a great opportunity for you to hear firsthand the innovative things that we're doing here with design thinking. Elaine Wren has been working very closely with Jean Kaneko, and they are making the vision that we had in the spring come true. And your kids are the beneficiary of all of the great things that are happening here. So we want to make sure that you understand that you get an opportunity to actually participate in design thinking as your kids have started on this process. And I will take no more time away from Jean, who is on the cutting edge of the making movement, design thinking. There you go.
And the parent, fundamentally. So to start off with, hi, I'm Jean Kaneko. I'm the founder and chief tinkerer of the Exploratory. For the past 6 years, we've been providing making and STEAM after-school programs and camps and lots of free events and a lot of outreach and learning opportunities, and really trying to evangelize the need for this type of work in schools. So I'm really excited to be here. I spoke at the board meeting yesterday, at your board meeting yesterday, and I'll repeat the same thing I said. I want to thank you all for your support and congratulate you, because you really have an incredible opportunity here. And you've, the Maker program, the innovation program that you've created here is my dream program that I have been wanting for the last 6 years, and that no other school, especially in the elementary school realm, is actually doing. So you're kind of like on the other side of the bridge, and most of the other schools, if they're thinking makerspaces, they're on this side and thinking, we have to build a bridge. You guys have already built the bridge, you've crossed over, you're on the other side, and you're like making tracks to somewhere, and your kids are doing the same. So tonight, I'm gonna give you a little bit of an idea of what the program is like. I'd love to answer any questions that you have. I'm sure you have many, because this is so unknown and this is so new and so cutting edge that you may have some concerns and questions, and I'd love to answer that. And then we've got a little activity for you in the back, and then we also brought out some of the new electronic components that Elaine has. And Martha has so generously allowed us to purchase for your kids. First of all, I have now met all your kids since last Thursday and today. And of course you think your kids are amazing, but I gotta say, your kids are amazing. I do this work in many schools, both private and public, and I usually hear a ton of, I can't do that, or you didn't tell me how to do that, or I don't know how to do that. And your kids kind of came in and went, oh, yay, okay, all right, yes, we want to do this, and we want to do this, and we want to do that. So it was really, really exciting to see that whatever experience and number of years they've been here, that they're really, really open to this whole new unknown. And so again, great job. Choosing the school, getting yourself into the school, right? Okay, so I'm going to talk to you today about how we are trying to prepare our children for this future that looks nothing like the past that we've had, where the education that we've had and the path that we've had, and even our career path, is very different. And the only thing that we do know about the future is that it's not going to look like the past. There are so many unknowns, and this is what this program, this I2 program that Echo Horizon is embarking on, is really intended to prepare your children for this unknown future. I hear this a lot. I did what they told me to do, and now I'm stuck, and it's not my fault, right? I asked a couple of people how old they thought that the person who said this was. Right? Any guesses?
25.
Exactly. Bing bong. Yes. Exactly. Exactly. But you know what? I do hear it in preschool. I hear it from 4-year-olds, right? And I hear it from a lot of, I will hear it from some 4-year-olds, and then I don't hear it again until about 2nd and 3rd grade, and then I really hear it in middle school and high school, and then now the millennials at 24, 25, this is actually where it came from. All right, so it was, I followed all the rules. I did my homework. I went to all the tutoring. I did amazing. I got my 4.5. I got my perfect 2200. You know, I worked my butt off, right? I am that good student. I don't move. I don't talk. I don't shuffle. I don't wiggle, you know, and I can't get a job, right? I'm getting these interviews. I'm in these interviews, and I'm frozen because I just don't know how to answer questions like, what would you be if you took a penguin and an elephant and put them together in a room filled with cotton candy? All right. So this is a real thing that's happening right now. So what is our challenge? So technology today. I don't know if any of you watched, but you know, Apple announced their new line of products, right? And they've got everything from taking stills and you touch it and it ripples and creates animation to iPads that are now like this big, right? That are called Power Pads or Power Mac Pads or like, you know, okay, thank you, right? You know, like every time I think that that we're slowing down a little bit, another thing comes out. Right? We've got driverless cars happening in San Francisco. They're coming down here in the next year or so. Soon, I have a 10-year-old, so I'm so excited. I'm thinking that I could get a driverless car to pick him up and take him to, you know, some after-school activity. I'm like, this is brilliant, right? Because I'm not completely comfortable with the Uber thing, right? So, like a driverless one, I can handle, right? So you know, and now, you know, could we imagine that in 10, 15 years, 20 years, that you can mentally Google? Right? You can have some kind of an implant, and as some of you are very familiar with implants inside the school, why not have an implant where you think something and you Google it and you get the answer, right? So you know, access to facts and figures is so easy and so accessible. So it's really not about what you know, but what you do with what you know, right? Today, also, LAUSD, all over the news, they were talking about the really sad results of the first Common Core test results, right? And there's a lot of factors to that, and you know, but that just goes to tell you, right? Like our kids, you know, up to 2nd grade haven't been prepared. And they kept saying, yeah, this test is going to basically measure how prepared they are to go into the workforce and to be, you know, productive citizens. And they came in at like 30% out of, like, it wasn't even an F, it was like a H or an I or something down so below, right? So we need to really rethink education and see how we can actually teach new skills to kids of all ages. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a science lab versus a makerspace. So let me tell you what we've done here. There are 2 rooms. There is a makerspace for the 3rd grade to the 6th grade, which is down the hall to the right. And then there's the STEAM space, which is next to the kindergarten room, which is one of the older kindergarten rooms, and that's for pre-K. Thank you. All right, pre-K to 2nd grade. And then the 3D printer and scanners and 3D scanners and all that kind of stuff still live in your tech room. So we've got both these rooms, and then your kids are still doing science and math, and they're doing all the subjects that they've been doing in the classes. And we're also bringing in language arts and math and reading into both the STEAM space and the makerspace. So there's this tying and this interconnecting and networking of more of the subjects, because that's how your kids think anyway, right? They're able to like do Minecraft, listen to music, and listen to you doing something and yell at their siblings all at the same time, right? So that's how they multitask. That's how they function now. So there is some confusion sometimes that Makerspace is about science and only science, right? Because there's STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, or STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And many of the schools, I would say almost all the schools, and this is where you guys are on the bleeding edge, are using the making spaces as a hands-on science lab. But the difference is, in scientific investigation, the goal is to find one law to explain many natural phenomena. And in schools, even the hands-on science experiments that they do, maybe it's a vinegar and baking soda, or stomp rockets, or parachutes, or egg drops, etc. They're recreations of an innovation, or an idea, or an invention that a scientist has already done and found the answers to. All right? That's not what scientists really do. Scientists actually sit down and try to find something new. In innovation investigation, we seek many solutions to the same problem. So what does this do? It allows for true differentiation in the classroom. So for that kid who's got that wild and crazy idea, it allows for space for that kid to realize that crazy idea. For that kid who's very, very particular and still working on that super flexible thinking thing, it allows space for him or her to also be really successful at that, right? Because we're basically saying, here's the problem, we want to hear all your ideas and solutions. Some of the benefits of maker programming, long-term projects. Many of your kids actually came in, and it was so funny because a couple of questions popped up. One was, can we take it home? Right? And when I asked them why, they were so excited about anything in that room that they could share with you. Right? And one of the things that we're actually working on is this idea of helping them transition from consumers to makers, and also to look at old materials and old toys and old clothes in new ways, and recycle, and really use, help you maybe not have entire clutter in your entire space. Right? And if you're anything like me, trying to figure out when your kids are not going to be home so that you can get rid of this huge pile of stuff that you don't know what to do with. Okay. So this is what I told your kids. I told them many times you're going to be working with a partner or with a group. So it's going to be really sad if you have to break up an entire project and break it up into tiny 3 or 4 pieces, right? Number one. Number two, we want to have a lot of this material here so that you can continue to use it again and again, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to take videos and pictures of it, right? So that you'll be able to log onto the classroom sites. We're going to have a special one just for the Makerspace and the STEAM space, so that you can actually see, and they can still have that joy of sharing their excitement with you about what they did and how they did it, etc. Right? And then the other thing that some of the kids asked is, if we don't finish something, can we continue working on it? Right? So that's out of the mouth of babes. So they're basically saying they want to continue working on something. They don't want to be done in 45 minutes. Right? Many of them, 45 minutes in those classes feels like 10. And literally your teachers were dragging the kids out to line up as they went out the door. So we have racks in both rooms for ongoing projects. They're empty racks that the kids are going to leave their projects there. When they come in, they'll continue their projects. And even if they're done, because I had that kid who was like, I'm done, right? I'm gonna, myself and my staff, we're trained to basically go, oh, but did you want to add a motor or a buzzer to that, right? Or a really cool LED light, or something really fun that you can program. So we want to encourage them, we want to stretch them wherever they are. It's also I also told your kids that this is the place where I want them to dump all their worst ideas possible. Their baddest ideas, their silliest ideas, their worst ideas. Why are we doing that? We want them to think of the space as something totally different. There is no right or wrong answer in this space. It's really up to them. We want to have them learn how to be agents of their own learning, right? Be critics of their own projects. And so that, we're not frozen when they come up to us and go, do you like it? And then we're like, wait, parenting book number 5, what did it say on paragraph, blah, 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 on what page? How am I supposed to respond to this, right? So we want them to feel that this is a space where they can fail. We want them to fail. And that they were great. I asked them, why is that important? They had answers for me. They said, that's the only way we can learn. Right? And they were all smiles because they were really looking for that opportunity to do so. Deeper engagement equals deeper learning equals lifelong learners. I mean, that's all we really want as parents, right? You want your kids to love learning. You want them to be 105 and still love learning, right? So the amazing thing about what the I2 program here is that it takes their passion, it takes their interest, it creates a framework around it so that it's not just playing, and it has, but I say that trepidatiously because play is also really important, but there is a structure and a framework around that play. It's not about technique or a piece of equipment. I do not go around going, 3D printing is the savior of the world and everyone should be 3D printing, and in fact I actually discourage it. It's like 3D printing can be really difficult, really hard, can be really frustrating if you're not ready for it developmentally. So we have created processes where they can use clay, where they can use paper and tape, and it gets scanned in using a very simple piece of equipment, which in fact you might even have at home. It's the Kinect for the Xbox, right? So I try to use as much equipment and tools as possible so that if your child, and we're hoping they will, wants to continue doing this at home, that you could. Almost all the software we use is open source or free. I think the most expensive ones that we have is Minecraft, right? And that's like $29, right? And by the way, all your kids, as soon as they saw a picture of Minecraft, it was just like, Minecraft, right? And you're all going, oh no, Minecraft, right? But we'll talk about that in a little bit too. It really is, and making is, again, not about just learning particular skills. Because a software that runs the 3D printer today, in 6 months, is going to be totally old, right? And you're going to have to learn a new software. So what we want to teach the kids is have them learn how to learn new software, right? That there are certain rules of certain softwares, and this is just the way it works. So that they're new Photoshop. When was the last time? Remember when the iPhone changed all their icon graphics? I was like completely lost because like I was so used to the graphics, right? But we want the kids to be able to pick it up and go, okay, I know exactly where I need to do this function, even though it looks different. And then it's a tool for self-expression. My son went to a Reggio-inspired preschool. I worked for Reggio Children. I was the project manager for the worldwide traveling exhibition, 100 Languages of Children, when it came to Santa Monica. And so I borrow a lot from that philosophy, which is that not all of us express our intelligence and our creativity and who we are through just reading and writing, right? There's the more traditionals, dance, music, art, etc. But what about robotics? What about woodworking? What about I'm the kid who needs to learn and be kinetic when I'm moving. So if I'm hammering something, I'm more likely to actually take in any of the concepts of math and the angles on what I'm doing because my body's moving and I can actually take input that information. And then ultimately, it allows the students to see the world through their lens, and it allows us to get to know them, and it allows us to give you some hints on what they're interested in, because they're being provided some more options. Hold on, let me do this. So I created this system called Tinker, Make, Innovate. You may have heard words of tinkering and making and Maker Faire, Make Magazine, right, and innovation. I feel like they all work together. There has to be some structure and framework. We were just talking about this I was just talking about this with one of your parents, because that's what happens in the real world. In the real world, if you work for, say Nike or Mattel, you don't just get to go there and they say, okay, just do whatever you want using whatever machines, right? You have a deadline, you have materials, you have focus groups, you have all these constraints, and within those constraints, you have, from that, innovation grows, right? And so that's what's really important for the kids to understand as well. So it's a 3-step process. We use real-world problem solving because we want them to understand that they're not only capable of solving real world problems, but that what they make actually can have an impact on their community, be that their family or their street, their neighborhood, or their city, or their country, or their world. We want it to be skill building, so there's going to be certain safety requirements and certain lessons on how to use certain tools while still having an open-ended structure so that they can bring their creativity into it. And we're going to be using all these tools to help them to develop a growth mindset. There is a wonderful book by Carol Dweck that is called Mindset, and it's not for educators, but it's become a Bible of sorts for those of us in this field. The idea being that there's a difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. In a fixed mindset, I might say, I'm not good at math. I've never been good at math. My mother's not good at math. My great-great-great-great-great-grandmother is not good at math. It's been determined since the beginning of the world that I am not good at math, right? Whereas in the growth mindset is, I just haven't spent enough time doing math and without that anxiety, right? But if I want to, the elastic portions of my brain can be stretched, right? And so we're going to be talking to your kids too about how their brains can actually be stretched. Maybe spelling's not their thing, maybe right away, right? Maybe it's like something that they have to push a little bit. But with a little bit of time and extra effort, they can make their, whatever they want, part of their brain, become what they want it to be. We're going to be using making tools like woodworking, electronics, there's 3D printing. I have a laser cutter not too far from here in Culver City that if your kids are building 3D models for, that they'll be able to, that we'll be able to laser cut for them. We've got all different kinds of electronic kits. We've got sewing. We're going to have conductive thread, so they can actually use hand sewing and sewing machine sewing to add electronics and interactivity to clothes. So those kids who are into fashion and maybe not into robots, you know, not all of us come running in and go, yay, robots, I want to do robots, or cars or planes, right? Some of us are into like decking out our shoes or our hats or our clothes, or maybe we want to create patterns for our dogs, make clothes for our pets or our dolls or for ourselves. All of those things have an incredible math and engineering components to them. We use a process called design thinking. It is if you want to know more about it, you can Google it, and design thinking, the Stanford D School. The Stanford Design School basically took a process that's been around for hundreds of years, that all the corporations, I'm sure Mattel probably uses some form of it, those who, those industries and companies who actually create new products use some form of this. And the Stanford D School took it and created a version for educators. And it looks something like this. We first work on identifying problems, then we select a problem, we brainstorm problems, and you know your kids, right? Your kids will be like, oh, I got a great idea, and they stop at 3, right? We're telling them we want 100, right? Of like literally the worst ideas you've ever had. All right, so if I say, oh, you know what, I'm going to make this new chair, and I say, okay, you know what, you're going to have to brainstorm. So I go, girdle. It has nothing to do with the chair, but it's something that popped out of my mouth. All right, so we just want them to get really comfortable with that, laughing at themselves, laughing as a group, going, oh, that's so silly. All right, and from there is where the best ideas, the favorite ideas, the ones that they want to continue with, grow. Then they're going to pick 3 potential solutions, again, because we're not sure which one is going to be the right one that we want to go with. We're going to prototype it, and we're going to share it with either within the class or within our community, and we're going to get feedback and information. And with that information, we're going to pick one of the solutions, and then we're going to make revisions and go back and share it again, and make revisions and go back and share it again. Now, this is also a skill that a lot of kids in school these days do not have the time and opportunity to do. They're so used to just getting from path A to Z, and within a certain period of time, and that's it. So I have seen kids who are incredibly uncomfortable when you ask them, when you tell them, look, you have the privilege and the opportunity and the amazingness, time to actually do it again. They're like, oh no, I want to be done, right? So what's going to happen when we're in the future and they're like, oh no, you know, we've got no water, or, you know, we're blowing out all our electricity, you know, well, that solution didn't work. Let's just move on, right? So we want to stretch that with the kids. And then we're going to create a final product. We're talking about having a TED Kids at the culmination of this at the end of the year, where your kids will have 6-8 minutes to come up and share their story. We're going to be asking them what worked, what didn't work, what frustrations did you have, what roadblocks did you have, and what did you do to get past it. And what I'm hoping for is that some of your kids are not going to have projects that work, but they're going to have amazing stories about how they got there and what they learned and what they are going to do again the next time. And then they're going to continue those projects. So I've seen this with kids, all right? So I'm going to ask you a favor and basically ask you to focus on the process, right? When your kid is sharing a picture or sharing what they did that day, basically talk about what they did, what didn't work. You worked past that. That must have been really frustrating, and yet you continued doing it, right? I know it's hard to not focus on the final thing, but the more you can do that, the biggest gift that you can give to the kids. So here's some of the things that they're going to be working with. So this is an old picture, but you have this amazing new product. Actually, I only know of one other school that actually has this product from Carnegie Mellon. It was created at the university. There's these circuit blocks, and we have some in the back there. So later, after this, you can actually go and take a look. They're going to got buttons and buzzers and switches and all different kinds of electronic components. On the top there is squishy circuits, which is Play-Doh, and that you can actually use to create also play with electronics. E-textiles, sewing, fashion design, knitting, felting, electronics, and then we bring in coding and programming through LilyPad, Flora, and Arduino. Your kids were very excited about making something that would prevent their siblings from entering into their rooms, or catching their siblings doing something they're not supposed to be doing. All right, so it's a big motivator. Very, so beware. I use this with our preschoolers. So these are 3-year-olds who use this as a simple thread with a needle. All right. So I showed the kids this picture mostly because I wanted them to know, even though it sounds a little complicated right now, it's actually thread and a needle, right? And you can do it, right? That's the Arduino, the LilyPad there. We have, I think, like 15, 20 kits of it. So your kids will be able to program that using Arduino, where there's an input and an output. So if I touch something, then something buzzes, or something lights up, or something moves, or something makes sound. We're going to be working with paper circuits. We have 3 or 4 different ways to add electronics to paper. And so they'll be making pop-up books and adding electronics and interactivity to cards and posters. Down there, that's a 67-foot wall, 6 foot tall, that actually illustrates the story of Latin America and Jewish history that we created for this Skirball for their Hanukkah celebration. Right? And so we're going to be asking them to be designers too, where they can create something for their community. They will be using recycled materials, adding electronics to it. And yes, some of them will be soldering. And yes, we will be there right next to them when they do it, right? They'll be wearing masks, they'll be wearing goggles, we have fume extractors, right? And I have done soldering with kids as young as kindergartners, all right? Now here, below 2nd grade, they won't, not yet, all right? But if you have that kid who really, really, really wants to, then we'll talk about that too. Right over here on the left is our balloon popping bot. It's one of the products that we have. They actually use recycled materials to protect their balloon while they make something that'll pop somebody else's balloon. So there'll be some fun challenges like that. 3D fabrication, modeling, printing, laser cutting, woodworking, prototyping. That young man up there actually created that owl. He created it out of clay first, because he decided that the owl is the most scariest image possible. And so he created it out of clay, we scanned it into the computer, he tweaked it, he printed it on the 3D printer, put electronics on it, along with a voice module that he recorded really creepy owl sounds. And it sits right outside his door, so that when anybody passes by, it makes these super, super, super creepy owl sounds with these like lights that come out in the eyes. We'll be using coding. Minecraft is an incredible 3D modeling software. Your kids are not going to be, fighting creepers and villagers and all that stuff. They do plenty of that at home. But we have a special software that allows us to 3D print what they model in Minecraft. So it is a great gateway to 3D modeling because 3D modeling programs tend to have quite a steep learning curve. So we want them to be able to learn how to do that. They'll be using Scratch a lot. Even the youngest ones, we will be having them use and get used to the idea of graphic-based coding. The pre-Kers will be programming us, right? And so I would encourage you to do the same. They love controlling you, right? So mommy, move 5 steps forward. If you hit daddy, move to the left 2 steps, right? If and then those kind of statements will be starting with the pre-Kers and going up. And then we'll be using Arduino for Arduino, Java, and processing. All right. Now, when I say this, we're not going to be sitting there and saying, okay, we're going to do 6 weeks of Java, 6 weeks of processing, right? Because not all of those tools are useful for everybody. So those tools are going to be available for the kids when they decide they have a project. And then we as the facilitators, our job is to let them know, in order for you to actually fulfill this project, this is what you need to learn. Right? And then we teach them the tools to learn that. That way they're so much more motivated. Because in the beginning you sit down and you spend all this energy, all this time, all this frustration, and you get, hello world. It's incredibly defeating, right? And you're like, okay, this is just not fun, right? Or you do an hour of code, 1 hour, and you do something that's just drag, and then you think you're done. You're a coder. You're 7 and you're done, right? You know everything there is to code, right? So we want to get them somewhere in the middle there. I'm going to share with you just a few projects really quickly. This is a project by a 7th grader who actually goes to a therapeutic school. And she's on the spectrum, and we asked her what problem she had. And she said her problem is slow Wi-Fi. And we could have just taken it at face value, but we asked her why. And she said, when she gets really riled up and her engine's running really high and she's feeling really dysregulated, she needs to see pictures of spiders. And so she knows that if she sees pictures of spiders and she reads about spiders, it helps regulate her nervous system and allows her to function in the classroom as she needs to. But when your Wi-Fi is slow, she dysregulates really quickly, right? So she used a laser cutter, and it's hard to see here, but she actually cut and engraved pictures and names and facts and figures about spiders on those little cards. She 3D printed a spider, used woodworking to create that box that she carries everything in, and she carries this with her everywhere she goes. So that if she knows if she's in the supermarket or if she's at school and she's feeling like she's going to be derailed, she just needs that support, she can pull it out and help herself. This is Lucy. She is 4 here, and her problem was that she shares a bedroom with her 2 other older brothers, and they can't sleep with the light on, and she can't sleep with the light off. So since birth, she has never slept all night long in her bed. She always ends up in mommy's bed. Right? And I can see by some of your faces that story can be, you have empathy for that. And so she decided that she was going to make her own nightlight. So she used wire, really soft wire, and bent it. She decided she wanted beads on it so it would look really pretty. And she'd been doing circuitry, and so she knows how to make an LED light up with some wires and a little switch. And so she added it onto there, and then right there she's actually bending the top as a hook so that she could hook it onto the bottom of her bunk bed. Right? 3 days later, we got a picture of her flat out in the bed, right? Slept through the night for the first time. So I'm going to leave you with this. There's a lot of other stories, but I'll put them on the blog, right? Because I want you guys to play a little bit, and I want to answer some of your questions. But this work empowers our kids. It would not have been the same if she went shopping with mommy to Target and actually went and picked up her own nightlight. She literally has blood, sweat, and tears into that product, right? So she just started kindergarten 2 weeks ago, and her mom's complaint to me was she now will not let her go buy anything or throw anything away, right? So her house has become like this crazy, so I actually had to help her create this craft room to organize all this stuff because it was my fault that she's this way, right? So I'm gonna leave you with that and let you know. I'm gonna give you a little bit of structure. Sorry, I didn't talk about the structure of what the time's gonna look like. So first 6 weeks, we're gonna be doing design thinking. Some of your kids may have come home and basically said that we started with The Simpsons. We looked at some character descriptions of The Simpsons. They read The Simpsons. Some of them read to each other. And then they're designing a chair for one of these Simpsons characters based on a need. And there's grandpa and there's like little 1-year-olds, and we're talking about what does it feel to be a grandpa? What does it feel to be a 1-year-old? And what is their need and what's their frustration? And what would we design on this chair that would address that frustration? And then the second 6 weeks, they'll be picking up skills and finding out what's possible. Then from January, they will be picking I squared time throughout the day on Thursdays. And if they pick the Makerspace or the STEAM space, they will come in and they will design a project. But we're going to give them a little framework, and we're going to say, okay, it's your interest. There was skateboard ramps. There was remote control cars. Was that yours? Okay. All right. And they already have all these ideas for the things that they want to do. What our job is as facilitators is to take that and help them to convert it from, let's say, a skateboard ramp for themselves to how could we design a skateboard ramp that would help other kids learn how to skateboard. Because that was something that they understood and that they went through and that they actually understand how difficult that could be, right? So we're going to take their interest and we're going to basically scaffold it so that it becomes something that they can learn how to develop empathy for, learn design skills, and then learn the skills to actually create what they want to make. So here, let me open it up to questions. Anyone? Yes?
I'm curious about the teachers in the room and what would they be doing during the 45 minutes that the kids spend? What kind of, how involved do they get in these projects? Obviously, if they're using the laser cutter, that's clear, but in terms of ideas and stretching ideas and stuff like that.
Yeah, okay, so one of the amazing things is, and to answer that, I've never had the structure and the time to be able to do this way. Usually I'm way rushed. But the 6 weeks that we're spending for the design thinking process is really designed to help the kids stretch those ideas. We do a lot of work on empathy building and stretching and doing something beyond what they even think they can do. The second 6 weeks is about them seeing the possibilities. Right? So first, those 12 weeks are there for them to just see what's even possible. Then once they have their project, we're scaffolding all day long. If you come in as teachers, we're literally hopping. One of the things that's crucial when I'm hiring is I'm looking for people who can hop. They have to hop over to one group and basically say, I see you're working on that. I'm wondering, I see that this is off balance. I see this leg is a little bit shorter than the other. I'm wondering what's happening. Think about it. I'll be back. Okay? Then they go into another. All right. And so we're not giving answers. All right. That's really the big important component of this. We're not lecturing in the beginning and say this is how you balance. You make sure that you have 4 legs. All right. We give them raw materials and we'll set it up too. We'll give them if there's 4 legs, I'll give them 2 that are of different materials because I know it's not going to work. Right? And I know that they're going to have to actually think beyond what they normally would do. For some of the kids, it's going to be hard because you love your kids. I love my kid. I do sometimes too much for my kid, and sometimes my kid gets used to that, right? And so sometimes it's going to be a little hard that they're going to, but we're going to help them through that. And every kid is at a different stage. So that's why we consider ourselves facilitators. Our job is to help them figure out how to do what they want to do. And then also to, again, steer them within the framework so that there is added value to what they're making, and not just a hobby thing for themselves, right? But we're hoping that that's going to turn into something that they can continue at home. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yeah.
How much of the prototyping work is it individual versus group? And if it's a group, are you also facilitating the group skills?
Oh yeah.
So how adults can't do it.
Yeah.
So how's the facilitation, or how do you learn those skills work?
Okay, first of all, your classroom teachers are in the room with us, right? So they know the kids really, really well. So one of the first things that we do is we ask them to make the pairs, or the groups, or the teams, or whatever, because they know whether this group needs a stretch, or this group really doesn't work too well together, right? So that's first, fundamentally. And I've seen in my work that those skills are actually the hardest skills that kids are not having enough opportunity to practice. Because there's so much, we've got to get this done, we've got to get this done, we've got to get this information, we've got to get this information. So we're doing a lot of that. I see that you have a different idea from your friend. And I see that you guys aren't even talking about it. But guess what? You got about 20 minutes, right? So what can we do? But I've seen your kids already this week in the twin classes. They were, first question, how are we going to decide? Do you want to do rock, paper, scissors? Or do you want to do, count 21? They have some of these skills already, right? And then we've got some kids who are, communication is probably not their biggest stretch, right? Verbalizing their communication. We're watching for that. We've made notes, we've seen which children are having which stretches, and we're going to have a lot of conversations with the teachers also to figure out which is the best way to do that. Every so often, it makes sense for the child to work alone, right? Very rarely, but it does. But we want to stretch each child from where they are and not where we want them to be, right? So it's important that if a child is just having difficulty just even doing this process whatsoever, and it's just too much to add the group dynamics and the social dynamics and the negotiation all there with her, we want them to be successful. So it's not a must, but it's a hope and a wish. Yes?
Paint a picture for us of what the facilitating team looks like. When second grade comes in, it sounds like the classroom teachers there.
All the classroom teachers, or just?
All, well, sometimes it's split. Elaine, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, it depends on some grade levels are going in combined, so like, pre-K first, both classroom teachers are in the classroom, in the STEAM space with them. 4th and 6th grade also go in together, so all the 4th grade teachers are with the kids in 6th grade. And then 2nd, 3rd, and 5th are in their cubby groups, and so there's usually 1 or 2 teachers with each group. Our arts specialists and PE specialists and administrators are also going through this process. So it was kind of funny the first, last week, at one point the kids turned around, they're like, are all these adults always going to be here? and the answer is yes, because this is a training process for all of the faculty and staff at the school as well. So there's ample adults, and we did some professional development with Jean before school started, and so the teachers are already learning ways to facilitate and questions to ask, and they're also working around with the groups and helping the kids to stretch their thinking.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, I just was wondering the long-term vision of this. So this year, you and your staff are here, but is it the idea that over the long run, you would not be here, and the staff here would, or the faculty here would be taking on a role that they're taking?
Well, I wouldn't be here every day, right? But our job is to constantly bring back what new ideas, new provocations. I have this really weird brain that loves new technologies and creating kind of projects around it. So I also sat down with all your teachers and I did a full day, 45 minutes per grade level, where they came in and they shared with me their lesson plans and their scope and sequences. And then I went through and basically said, well, here's a way you can combine history and writing and science, and use the technology to basically get time to basically do this, right? Because, yes, the idea is that the teachers will incorporate this into their lessons, that they'll be able to come into the Makerspace to, and be very comfortable to use all the tools that are in that space. And then we'll introduce new ones, because we want to keep you guys on that edge constantly, right? And your kids can take it. They're just like, give me more. And then ultimately, you know, it's, I don't know, I'll leave that to Martha and to, you know, Elaine, but wouldn't it be amazing if your kids could be doing this in longer stretches of time, and they're incorporating and using all their math and their science and their reading and their writing, and be using all those skills to actually create something that they want. So I can't tell you beyond, I don't know, that's a question for Martha and Elaine, but from our point of view, it's really to train the teachers to be really as comfortable as we are with these tools. Yes?
And this will be limited to the 45 minutes that they're scheduled for. They don't have the option to go in during recess to
From
continue.
January. Yes, from January, they will, recess will be open to all the grades, or?
We're still working on the schedule because we have 2 spaces and we will only have 1 exploratory staff on those days, but we will have recess time options for the kids to come in on Tuesdays and Thursdays to work on ongoing projects. And then as Jean mentioned, she's been working with the teachers to help them see other ways to integrate the use of the Makerspace and the STEAM space in the curriculum. So the teachers will have the ability on the days other than the iceberg days to actually bring their classes in, and they're already working on some different ideas that they have for projects that they want to do to enhance some of the units that they already teach.
So some of your teachers could be in there 4 days a week, you know, and they could, they're going to be making appointments to use the space. On Tuesdays, my staff is going to be there to support them. So if they're thinking, oh, I want to really do something with Arduino, and I studied Arduino, but you know, you've done it, right? Like you take a class and you're like, okay, I think I know it, but I'm not quite ready to be alone. All right, then my staff will be there on Tuesday, so they can make an appointment on Tuesday to have that comfort and that support. Once they do that, they can come back on Wednesday, and they come back on Friday, and the following Monday, and they just continue that. So it's really going to be up to the teachers to use that as much as possible. The STEAM space is slightly different from the Makerspace, just because of the age differential. In the STEAM space, it's a discovery space. In some ways, it's like a children's museum, but that's curated, and that's that we're working with the teachers on. So if they're doing wind or animals or habitats in the classroom, that there's materials that are available to them, so they can actually come in and basically enhance what they're doing in the classrooms. We have wind tunnels over there. We've got light and shadow exploration. Lots of recycled materials. We'll be taking apart toys and actually, you know, looking inside and seeing how things run, and then maybe making Franken toys by taking, you know, one part of one toy and one part of another toy. It's really fun seeing the little girls when we bring in like the Easter rabbit that moves and does this thing after, you know, Easter, and we give them little surgical masks and little scissors, and we have them open it. They're like, no, don't kill the bunny. But you know, they may sew, you know, the arms of one to another, etc.
And perhaps you guys have already explored this, and maybe the developmental stage wouldn't encourage this, but since the 4th graders will be in the Makerspace with the 6th graders, when you develop groups that they work with, is it mixed age groups?
They're not in the during I2 time. They're not in the room together.
Got it.
right? The 4th grade classes, oh wait, during I2 time they could be, right? Yeah.
Starting in January, we'll probably have 3rd and 4th mixed, and 5th and 6th mixed, and then the same pre-K, K, and 1st and 2nd. So there'll be a little bit of opportunity for mixed age grouping, which I think creates some interesting opportunities for some of the older kids to mentor younger kids, and sometimes age doesn't really make a difference in terms of their interests, so they won't be 3rd and 6th at this point. Just also to allow us to have more opportunities for adult mentors, we're going to be dividing the times.
So speaking of, another sort of purpose of this talk is to recruit you all as mentors. You know, we're looking for anyone who sews, anyone who knits, anyone who thinks, designs, you know, wishes that they could do something. Right? I could teach anybody almost anything, right? But mostly I would love for you to come in, you know, to share something that you really love. It could be organization, it could be logical thinking, right? It could be engineering, it could be coding, it doesn't have to be, right? Sometimes it could just be an extra pair of hands because you want to learn how to use conductive thread to add bling to your clothes, right? And you know, so you know, and if you can't, because many of us, I'm a working parent, I'm still trying to figure out how to be a working parent, right? And if we can't make it during the school day, then there'll be plenty of other opportunities where we'll be asking you to collect certain materials and certain you know, toys and things like that that we take apart, or certain recycled materials. We will, we haven't talked about it yet, but I actually am one of the pilot Imagination Chapter groups. If you remember Kane's Arcade from a few years back, he was that 9-year-old boy who ended up on the cover of Forbes magazine because he created a cardboard arcade, right? So there's an entire foundation now named after him, and they have created these chapters. And the idea is that these are free programs that are supported by many, many different partners, et cetera. And there may be an opportunity for you parents who want to do something like this, to do this once a month, you know, with your kids. And, you know, I haven't even told Martha and Elaine about it. But, you know, so there's, you know, there's many opportunities, all right? So, you know, there's probably some that I haven't even thought about. So please bring them up to Elaine and Martha and, you know, ask them about it, because we'd really like for this to be a community effort. Any other? Yes.
I'm also wondering, what are some of the things that we could do at home as parents, other than volunteering our time or working with these other organizations, that we can to support this type of learning at home, to make it more, the transition home more seamless, especially when we have to practice math, when we have piano lessons, dance, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
I suppose sports. But
Yeah. And how old is your son or daughter?
Well, we have a 7-year-old.
Uh-huh. Okay. So that's a great question. So in number one, all right, try to avoid the following. No, that's not the way it works. All right. Let them do it. All right. Let them, and when I say do it, loose Legos. Right, like as many loose Legos as you can versus those really expensive $300 Legos that they can finish in about 2 hours, right? And you're like, you're better off buying a $300 big, like go out and get like cardboard, $300 worth of cardboard, right? And have them take that apart, right? Give them some opportunity to, among all the structured and the piano and the, you know, because I do the same thing, I'm shuffling my kid everywhere, right? Give them, you know, once a week, you know, an hour or two of just unplugged, unstructured time, right? And then you just give them some materials. And your job is to find out what is exciting for them. Maybe it's fabric, maybe it's electronics. And some of these things that we have in the Makerspaces, we'll be glad to share with you where we got them. You know, like I said, you know, some of these things we actually get from Home Depot and we make them from scratch, right? Make them with your child. But pure, just raw, these are the materials, go for it, all right? And with no judgment and no opinion of your own, you know, other than do you need a third hand to hold that, all right? Which helps with the social skills, right? Woodworking. Anything that, for your young ones, we're using the special foam with golf tees. And these, the golf tees you get at the 99-cent store, and there's mallets, rubber mallets from the 99-cent store. And the foam is something that we got from Home Depot, right? Copper tape, you can, if they find that they're interested in this, electronics on paper is actually a copper tape that's found at Home Depot that's used to prevent slugs from going into your raised garden beds. So this is $3 for like a roll, right? I'm working on making packets of cheap LED lights and coin cell batteries, right? Have them design, so, as you're driving, all right, from one place to another place to another place, go, oh, I wonder what would happen if, and having those conversations will really help them to open up their minds. Oh my God, it's 8 o'clock and we haven't even done our marshmallow test. Yes.
It occurs to me the bag of electronics that doesn't work anymore that I was going to take to the electronics recycling place might be full of stuff you might want to have to take apart.
Yes.
Is that the kind of thing that we as parents can help with? And if so, how? Do I keep it till a day where I get an email that says, bring in the electronic stuff that doesn't
Please.
work?
Yes. Until we find some more storage, all right? But the things that we would love for you to actually bring in without having to wait are like vibrating toothbrushes, old cell phones, hair dryers. These are more smaller pieces versus the Betamax. See, some of you know what that is, some of you don't, or a VCR, right? Some of you might know that, or a CD player, right? Those are a little bit harder for us to work with right now, but if you have any typewriters, all of that stuff, hold on to those, because the kids will go through those, and we will have an opportunity to take them apart.
So for right now, we're just looking for take apart toys?
Yeah, small things, right? Electronic toys, any stuffed animal that moves or like wiggles or dances or sings, those we'll take now as well. Toilet paper rolls and paper towel rolls, we will also take now. Toilet paper and paper towel rolls are really, really useful. Yes?
So I just want to throw you a specific example. I probably messed up already and didn't do it right. But so one of my 7-year-olds this summer discovered a stack of old laptops in the garage and is determined to take them apart. Okay. And I don't know anything about it. And so then he sneaks in there when I'm not looking.
Oh, I like him.
And in the dark with a flashlight. And so it had Googled how to take apart a motherboard.
A 7-year-old.
Yeah.
I gotta love
Okay.
it.
So what can I do? Sort of piggybacking
Yeah.
on Kevin's question.
Take it out of the garage, put it on the dining table. Right? Yeah.
And I'm like, I think that's wrong. So
Okay,
what
yeah.
could I do?
So obviously this is something he really wants to do.
Right.
All right. So you hear the stories all the time, right? The kid would take apart everything in the house, right? Everything that we actually need, right? So to prevent him from doing that, give him stuff he can take away. Like make a little corner for him, the Tinker Corner, right? And it's got tiny little screwdrivers. You can there's a store called Daiso on Sawtelle and Olympic. It's the Japanese 99-cent store that's actually $1.50. They have like these little kits. I mean, it's just the only way I can describe it, and everybody gets it, right? They have these little kits with these tiny little screwdrivers, right? And have that be a little kit, and make a little station for him, and give him the thing. So here's the thing about take apart stuff: nothing older than 1985, right? Anything that looks like it has a tube in it. Or, and if it's been plugged in, make sure that it's been unplugged for at least 2 to 3 weeks before you open it, because sometimes they hold a charge. All right. The other thing is lead. Yes. All right. The other thing is lead. So you just want to make sure that they're either some of these gloves are too small, but they need to know that they can't touch their face when they're when they're taking it apart, and they have to wash their hands immediately afterwards, and just have them have a conversation about lead. Okay. Yes.
Can you maybe describe after the 6 weeks the process that maybe 3rd to 6th graders are going to take to select their project that they're going to pursue?
We're still working on that. All right, and like I said, this is bleeding edge, literally, right? But they're gonna be given, they're gonna be asked to provide choices, and there's gonna be different rooms in addition to the makerspace and the STEAM space. So there may be the kitchen for cooking and drama, and the coding room, coding and computer. So they'll be asked to make choices, and then out of those, they will be given, one of their 1, 2, 3 choices. Then if they come into the makerspace or the STEAM space, for the younger kids, it's going to be more exploration. For the older kids, we're going to start with, okay, what do you want to learn? All right, and some of them already know. They're coming, they're like, I want to learn Arduino, I want to learn Raspberry Pi, I want to make a skateboard. And then we sit with them, literally, and go, okay, I need you to draw it out for me. Tell me exactly what you want to do. What's the dimensions, right? We're going to be using rulers and math and scale and all those things. And then we're going to figure out, oh, you need wood, you need 3D printing, you need this, you need this. And then we will be bringing those materials in for them. And then for the rest of the year, we're facilitating, helping them basically build their project. Last one, because they're all staring at me in the back.
So once everything is up and running, unless it already is up and running, I totally missed it. How many? So they're going to touch the makerspace, the STEAM space, approximately how?
Right now, they're going once a week.
Okay.
For the first 12 weeks. Some of the classes are coming in on Tuesday, and some of the classes are coming on Friday for 45 minutes. From January, they'll have the opportunity to access the space during recess, and then they'll pick the STEAM room, the STEAM space, or the makerspace, or the kitchen, or coding, or something like that.
Yeah. And then their teachers have access to bring them into the space
All those other days.
So when you want to control this, we have a dimmer here. It's kind of like a dimmer in your house. It controls the amount of electricity that flows through the circuit. So as you turn this, you can control how much energy is passing through. And then over here we have a simple switch with a pulse modulator. So this one turns on, and then the pulse kind of does what it sounds like. It pulses the amount of electricity that flows through the circuit, so it turns it on and off.
So we were going to do this marshmallow. So you get 20 pieces of spaghetti, and you get 1 marshmallow, and you have 3 feet or 1 meter of masking tape, and the same equivalent of string. And you want to build, the challenge is to build something that will hold a marshmallow on the top of it as tall as you can. Right? And I will let you know that this is something that they do in corporations, etc. And they have found out that attorneys do the worst, right? And kindergartners do the best. All right. So we've already laid these out. So if you want to take a set home, please do so. All right. And then take pictures and email them. Do it with your child. All right. Have your kids do one while you and your husband do one, and you'll see what some of the differences may be, right? Your kids will love you for it, right? And then in the back, we set up so that you can just see some of the new circuitry products we have, little bits back there, and then these circuit blocks over there, all right? And Elaine and Martha have my email address. I do have some cards somewhere I can pass you, but feel free to email me, ask me any questions at all, yeah, I hope to see you guys in the class. So, thank you so much.